Five-time National Finals Rodeo qualifier Jessica Routier continues to set the rodeo world on fire. Her exceptional horse, fondly known as Missy, is one of the most consistent mares in barrel racing history. Together, they've won Lawton, Oklahoma, Sydney, Iowa, Billings, Montana, Oneida, and Clear Lake, South Dakota, as well as the Badlands Circuit title. And that's just this year. Jessica, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
In less than a month, you'll be headed back to Las Vegas for your fifth NFR. How does it feel? Is it any different, this fifth qualification versus your first? I know that there's different trials and tribulations every year that you guys have to deal with out on the road. What does this one look like personally compared to some of your previous qualifications?
Honestly, I think this is the most exciting one just because it was harder to get there this year. It came down to September. We've never really had to rodeo into September before, and September got here this year. We didn't know if we were going to make it in or not, so we had to keep going, and which I didn't really enjoy all that much, to be honest, because my kids were in school at that point and had to miss some ball games and stuff, but somehow it worked out and we get to go back. So it's super exciting just because, again, it was a little tougher to get there this year.
From the outside looking in, Missy appears to just be so honest and consistent. How do you keep her working and listening to you in such a tight, high energy coliseum like the Thomas and Mack?
Honestly, I don't work her a lot throughout the year. She usually just does her job, and there's no sense in taking her around the barrels any more than I have to. And so I kind of just try to leave her alone. But before we go to the Thomas and Mack, usually I try to work her at home quite a bit and just really over exaggerate staying off the barrels and staying free, because yeah, it's really easy to get short in that arena, especially when you have to run there 10 nights in a row. So I do that before we go, and then we have a really great place that we stay out there, some friends that we made the first year we went out, and they've got an outdoor arena that I can use throughout the week. So if I need to work her a little bit and free her up, I can do it in their arena. My horses are ranch horses before they're ever barrel horses, and so they're not used to living in a stall. In fact, Missy, that was one of the few challenges I had with her when we first started going, is she had a lot of anxiety if you put her in a stall. She's gotten a lot better over the years because sometimes she just had to be in one. There was no other choice. But definitely not having to spend those 2 weeks in a stall. They have a nice big area to lay in the soft sand and soak up the sun during the day and just relax. And we go to the first practice normally before the rodeo starts, but I've never actually taken her back in for any practices after that, because I can work her where we're staying if I need to. And I just think it's better for her to relax than to have to haul in one extra time to practice.
What other horses are you taking out there?
So I'm planning on taking the same two horses I took last year. Both of them are daughters of the good rodeo horse that I had before Missy. So it's a little bit sentimental for me too, but one of them will be my grand entry horse for the 10 days, and she's also kind of my second string backup if things got real bad. But the other one is my first string backup, and she doesn't get ran a lot because Missy is just Missy and she doesn't usually need any extra help. But she's real good indoors and in small patterns, and so I feel like if I had to run her, she'd be good there.
Now, over the years, how have you prepared or adjusted how you've prepared for that particular setup?
I think just having your horse in the best shape you possibly can and feeling the best is what's going to give you the most advantage. The first 2 years I went, I actually swam my horse before I went. We have some friends that have an aqua tread, so I sent her there to swim, and she was in the best shape of her life when we went. Then those friends actually sold their aqua tread business, so I didn't have that quite an option, I guess. So I didn't do it the last 2 years, and I feel like that maybe hurt us a little bit these last 2 years. So I have some other friends that are a little further away, but she is going to swim. Actually, Monday, she's headed to their place to swim. So hopefully we'll have her in the best shape possible again, and she'll be ready to go.
You've won the Badlands Circuit year-end title several times, this year by more than $6,000. Back in 2017, your performance in Minot essentially led to a reserve WPRA World Championship and reserve NFR average title. Talk to me about the circuit system and how it's helped to build your career as a professional barrel racer and other folks in your shoes with, kids, careers. What does that circuit system mean to professional rodeo?
It's amazing that it's an option, and I literally circuit rodeoed my way to the finals. I feel like that first year, because the NFR was not on my horizon at all, and it just kind of happened. And I hate to say that because it is really hard to make it there. And granted, my horse was running good and capitalizing everywhere we went. But yeah, the circuit system is what started it all for us. And every year it's continued to do so because having a family and the obligations that I have at home, I really don't like to be gone any more than I have to. And we're just lucky that we have the circuit rodeos that we do. I can win enough at those that I don't have to venture out quite as much as I would if we didn't have that. So I'm super thankful. The discussion comes up quite often with the WPRA as to whether or not they're going to keep approving or keep letting the circuit finals and the national circuit finals count towards the NFR. But I hope it always does because it's been a key factor in getting us to the NFR every year.
You mentioned not liking to venture out too far, and obviously you have the obligations, responsibilities you do now. Did you have those goals, or did you have your sights set on NFR dreams as a little girl, or when did you decide that you wanted to be a professional barrel racer and go this path?
I've always loved horses. I've ridden horses and rodeoed for as long as I can remember. Wasn't specifically set on barrel racing. Even in college, I still roped and goat tied and didn't really have a favorite event until, up until the last few years, the breakaway has really taken off. But until then, if you wanted to continue to rodeo, it was pretty much as a barrel racer. Thankfully, throughout college and after, I had a great horse that allowed me to keep barrel racing on the professional level. I definitely wasn't one of those little kids that sat down and watched the NFR and was like, I want to be there someday. I don't even really know when I realized what the NFR was, how old I was, or anything like that. But I also grew up in Wisconsin where there's people from Wisconsin that have made the NFR, but not many. And so it's not something that you're just like super familiar with. Whereas where I live now, this small town in South Dakota, half the town leaves and goes to Vegas every year to watch the NFR. So it's like a big thing here. But where I grew up, it really wasn't as big, or I didn't realize it if it was, I guess. So it definitely wasn't ever a goal of mine as a little girl or even as I got older. I just loved barrel racing and I was happy to do it wherever I could, and things just crazily fell into place and we made it there. So
what's been your biggest or favorite win so far? And are there any rodeos that you haven't won or goals that you haven't accomplished yet that are still on your bucket list?
One of my favorite wins was Belle Fourche Black Hills Roundup one year. It poured down rain. I was in the first performance. Everyone turned out of my performance. I was the only one that ran. And I honestly wasn't probably going to run Missy because it was right before Calgary. And I just thought there's so much money to be won in Calgary. I just would hate to hurt her, and not get to take her there. But then I think I watched the bareback riding and maybe the team roping, and it really didn't look unsafe. So I went ahead and ran her, and we ran the fastest time we've ever run in Belle Fourche, personally. I think we were a 17-1. It's a standard pattern. We ended up winning the whole rodeo because it stayed muddy the whole rest of the week. And so that was probably one of my favorite runs on her, just because even after I came out and they announced my time, I thought, well, they must have set a smaller pattern or something because there's no way. But that's just how Missy's always been. She'll just surprise you like that when the odds are stacked against her. My other favorite would have been last summer, 2021. We won the Pikes Peak or Bust Rodeo in Colorado Springs. And it was the format where the finals is an 8-round and a 4-round. We've been to rodeos with that format a lot of times in our lives, and we've placed second a lot of times in our lives, and I'd never actually won one before, and we finally did theirs, so that was super exciting for us. But as far as things we haven't won yet, there's a lot. I mean, the cool thing about rodeos, there's so many different opportunities, so many different places. We've never won the 100,000 at Calgary or the 50,000 at Houston or any real big ones like that, so those would be super exciting to get to win someday.
What's your favorite one just to run at? I mean, you dream of going to Cheyenne because it's a Cowboys rodeo, or running on the grass at Pendleton. What's your favorite one just to enter for you?
I do love Cheyenne, especially since we finally got it figured out this year. Missy's not one that can run from that far back and still have a good first barrel because she starts anticipating it so much. But I've had a real struggle through the years getting her to walk in the arena ways before she takes off. And finally this year I was able, and all through the finals, she walked in every single run. So that was just a huge personal accomplishment in itself. Yeah, once you get walked in there, then Cheyenne is super fun. We did Pendleton for the first time ever this year, and I didn't run Missy. I ran a young horse, but it was a lot of fun too. So I don't know that I could pick one favorite, but Calgary, the whole Calgary experience is really awesome too, not just the rodeo itself, but everything that goes with it.
So we've touched on building your career a little bit. Tell me about the horses that have built you into the horsewoman and competitor that you are.
There's really one main one, and her name is Smoothie. Especial Smoothie was her registered name. And I got her when I was 15 years old. My mom trained horses for a living. My mom brought her up from Texas from a cutting horse trainer, which my mom often did. She'd get horses from her friends down there and then get them going and sell them. But we liked her so much that we kept her. And I ran her from the time I was 16 years old, a junior in high school, all through 7 years ago. I quit running her. So I ran her for 17 years. I won one circuit title on her, but I think I was second, I don't know, at least 5 or 6 times in the circuit. She was super consistent, actually probably even more consistent than Missy was, but not quite as fast. But she would try so hard every time, just like Missy did, no matter what the conditions were. Yeah, so she really shaped my whole life. I don't know that I'd have ended up where I did. For sure I wouldn't have if it weren't have been for that horse. So she was the main one. But I grew up, I started on cutting horses. We did everything, but my mom trained a lot of cutting horses. I got to ride an own daughter of Docalina, who was my cutting horse junior and senior year of high school. She was 23 years old and just tough as nails. She was so cool. So yeah, there's been a lot of really great horses.
I've got to go back to Missy. You know, she tied for third in the 2021 Neutrino Horse of the Year. Obviously, a lot of people think she's pretty special. What's her story? What makes her so special to you? Does she have any, unique quirks? Let's talk Missy.
She just gives her all every single time. She has since I started running her. She actually came to me as a 2-year-old. She's owned by Gary Westergren from Nebraska, and I've rode horses for him for I think 12 years now. Basically, all his horses come to me as 2-year-olds, and then we get them going and see what kind of path we think they should take. And he's had some really nice horses over the years, but none that, when I was riding his horses, Smoothie was kind of getting towards the end of her career, and I wasn't dead set on needing to keep rodeoing, but I also hadn't come across another horse. And then Missy came along, and it's just amazing she turned out as quickly as she did, because I had twin baby girls when she was 4 years old, and then I had another baby when she was 5 years old. So I was pregnant for most of the first 5 years of her life, but the last one was born in June of Missy's 5-year-old year. So we hit some of the fall futurities after that, and she did amazingly well at those. And then the next year, her 6-year-old year, was the first year I was going to season her a little bit at the rodeos. And that was 2017. So that was the year we won the circuit and started this whole crazy NFR journey that we've been on the past 5 years. I won $80 on my backup horse this year, and that's the only dollars at all that I've won on any other horse at a pro rodeo the last 5 years. So basically she's done it all herself, and I just think that speaks a lot to her, how tough she is, and just to stay sound and still want to do it after that many runs is pretty amazing to me.
With the futurity industry growing like it has, do you plan on breeding her and running any offspring, or what does her future as a producer look like?
So I've actually been pulling embryos out of her for quite a few years. Her oldest is going to be 5 this coming year. So he's actually entered in his first futurity. We've got some more coming next year too. Between her owner and I, we try to each get one every year, but it's embryo transfer, so it doesn't all work out. But we've got quite a few that we're super excited about. My other goal is I have 4 girls, so I'm trying to, have a plan in place so that all these girls are mounted when the time comes, and these horses hopefully are going to be what helps me do that.
You mentioned your daughters. What advice would you give to them or other young girls that dream of running at the NFR someday?
don't be afraid to ask for help, I think is the first thing I would say, because there's so many people out there that want you to succeed or want to help you succeed. And all you need to do is ask. And so that would be one of my main pieces of advice. And the other thing is, don't make it stressful. Like, I see people out there that want to make the NFR so bad, and it just hasn't happened yet. It just hasn't been their time yet. And I feel like you really need to enjoy the journey, because there's at least 50 horses out there right now and people that really should be there. I mean, there's so many good, nice horses and good jockeys out there, and they all should be there, and only 15 get to go. And so if you don't enjoy the process of getting there and you don't make it, it's going to be a long, stressful year. If you can enjoy it along the way, then it doesn't really matter what happens